And now...
What is this?
I know you're gonna dig this.
This is the Flatland Sports Podcast.
Where do you come from? Lubbock, Texas?
Lubbock, Texas.
A place called Lubbock.
I wonder if they think I'm so gorgeous back in Lubbock.
What do you care about Lubbock? You're big time now.
I'm just a little homesick, that's all.
Is that what you want, Larry, to spend the night in Lubbock, Texas at a day's end with a $15 voucher from Cinnabon?
Lubbock? No, it's near Lubbock.
What's it like there?
It's flat, real flat. You stand on a coffee can, you can see Colorado.
Happy Monday to everyone across the great plains of West Texas. This is the Flatland Sports Podcast. My name is Christopher Johnson. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back for another edition. We decided to keep the train wreck moving. The garage door is closed for the official garage door report of the show. I'll need to get a sponsor for that. Lots to get over. First of all, I want to tell you all we are going to start doing 2 shows a week. I initially was going to do just a show every Monday. We're going to have one now every Monday and Thursday, starting this week. So there will be another edition of the Flatland Sports Podcast this Thursday. And of course, when the games start, we will have a live edition, a live post-game show on X. X to start out, we'll probably start cross-posting platforms as more and more platforms become available for me. I do need 50 subscribers to get to do live shows on YouTube, which is what I'm aiming to do. So if you wouldn't mind supporting the channel, hit the like button. That helps the algorithm, and subscribe. And once we hit 50 subscribers, we can start doing live shows, and we can just talk directly and have a conversation. I'll let you, the listener, determine how the shows go. Until then, we've got lots to go over. There was actual Texas Tech Red Raider action played on grass this week as the Texas Tech Red Raider soccer team took on San Diego State University. They're playing Santa Clara now as I record this, so I won't have any of the information on that game. There's a new throwback uniform that came out. But more specifically, the collective college football world and the Big 12 lost their minds and declared war against Texas Tech. But we'll get to all that and more. But we'll start off with, as we mentioned, Red Raider action this week. The Texas Tech women's soccer team opened their season last Thursday. They beat San Diego State University 4-0. First team All-American Macy Blackburn had 3 first-half assists. And they put on a second goal in a fourth goal in the second half to complete the shutout. They're playing Youngstown State as I record this. They'll play Santa Clara. I think I said Santa Clara right now. They're playing Youngstown State as I record this. They will play Santa Clara next Thursday. Texas Tech revealed a new throwback uniform for the Centennial season. We had some rumors that were kind of circulating about that. A few, I think it was Baron Morton put out something saying that they've had something special for the Centennial season. It was not the Elmer Tarbox look that I was hoping for. I've been pushing for an Elmer Tarbox throwback for years now, especially now as we've seen the faux leather helmets that they've done. The Green Bay Packers are rolling one out this year. I think the University of Illinois had one last year where, it's the same plastic shell, but they painted or did something to it to make it look like leather. We have the technology. I'll put a picture up on the screen of what I want. Get us this uniform, please. I want to see this throwback so bad. It is cool nonetheless. It's not a traditional throwback. Ryan Hyatt said on his show, it's really more of a tribute. This is just a tribute. Some people don't like it. I don't think, listening to Ryan Hyatt's show, I don't think he cared for it. And I got to tell you, it's not my favorite uniform that Texas Tech has ever put out, but we all did, at least most of us, unless you're 5 years old and just now getting into Texas Tech football, we all lived through the 2010s, the 2010s. We saw things that we can't unsee. We saw Florida wearing alligator skin uniforms. We saw a red to black gradient. We saw Lone Star Prides. We all watched Patrick Mahomes get knocked unconscious wearing a god-awful state of Texas flag helmet that was blue with a star on one side and red and white striped on the other side. I'm a traditionalist. I prefer traditional uniforms. I like one helmet. I like to see. I was a fan of what the NFL did a few years ago, where they claimed it was for safety. It clearly wasn't. It's because the NFL was traditional as well. But every team, you have one helmet, and when you see that helmet, you know that's your team. And so Texas Tech, I want to see a black helmet, and I want to see a double T on the side of it, and we're good. I tolerate the white helmets. I know there's a little bit of history behind the white helmets. Most people associate white helmets with Tommy Tuberville, and I get that. That was a traumatic time for most of us. But I still remember, or still am aware of the Dave Parks era. Excuse me, not Dave Parks. But the early 70s era with the white helmets. There's a little bit of history there. Even the red helmets. E.J. Holub wore a red helmet. The Red Raiders back in the 40s used to alternate between a red and a black helmet. They wore black at home and red on the road, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'm okay in the traditional sense. I prefer one helmet. I tolerate alternating different helmets as long as they are within reason. I like a home uniform. I like an away uniform. Maybe an alternate. In Texas Tech's case, it's good that there's a home all black. There's an away white uniform, and then you got a red alternate to throw in there. That said, like I said, we lived through the 2010s. We saw things that we will never be able to come to terms with. And we went from 4 to 6 of these special uniforms in the 2010s to now we've landed on, we get 1, maybe 2 in a year. And usually those are throwbacks. Last year we had the special Patrick Mahomes uniforms that were gray. And again, not a fan of any color scheme that does not involve your team's color schemes. The gray uniforms needed to die in the 2010s where they were created. That's it. That was the era Patrick Mahomes was from. So of course he trotted out a gray uniform for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And as far as gray uniforms go, they were pretty good. They were fantastic. They would have just been better if they were all black. So all that to say, this year, the one special uniform that we get, the one obligatory special uniform, is going to be no gray. It's going to be a black helmet with a double T on the side. It's a black jersey and it's white pants. Again, not a throwback per se, although they do sell a T-shirt that literally would be the throwback because it has the traction stripe double T design that's featured on the sleeves. The whole T-shirt is just that design, meaning that's pretty much an exact carbon copy of what the uniform from 1925 or 1927 was, which they trotted out there in black sweaters basically with the double T on the front that said Tech on the front. The helmet is black. It's got a double T. Like I said before, it's not a traditional throwback. It's a tribute to multiple different eras of Red Raider uniforms. And I think that's pretty freaking cool. It covers pretty much just about every era. If you haven't seen them yet, go look at them. But it's kind of like the Texas Rangers City Connect uniform, where they took essentially elements from the old minor league teams that were in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and just mashed them together to create the Peagle. Every part has a meaning. You start with the helmet. It's got the original double T. And when I mean original, I don't mean the kind of offset double T that we've seen before. It has basically somebody took a paintbrush and drew a double T on the front of those old Leatherhead helmets. There's no accents, no lines. It is simply 2 T's sitting on top of each other. You go down to the jersey itself. It's a black jersey. It says Tech right on the front, just like the original Texas Tech uniforms did in 1925. The sleeves have it's traction stripes. They used to use those. I don't know what purpose they served in the 1920s, but they were part of football uniforms back then. And the double T worked into that, which was a design. It was the uniform that Texas Tech wore in the early 30s. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, think like what Iowa State does, and kind of what they're. I heard someone call them Iowa State logos. Iowa State doesn't own traction stripes. You know, everyone had them in the 20s and 30s. The numbers are, to me, look a lot like the numbers from the E.J. Holub era or the Joe Barnes era. The late 50s, early 60s. Those uniforms. The pants, they're white pants. They've got a sort of a checkered, alternating red to black stripe down, which is supposed to match the harness that Joe Kirk Fulton rode on the original Masked Rider. The horse had a kind of a red and black checkered strap that it was riding on. And these uniforms, they'll be worn at homecoming versus Kansas on October 11th. Like I said, they're not necessarily my favorites. My favorite would have been the Elmer Tarbox throwback that I've been yelling about and calling for years. My all-time favorite that Texas Tech has already worn would probably be the 70s white helmet, red jersey, white pant throwback with the stars. Oh, and that's another thing. They had the stars from those old white helmets too. Were mixed in as well as a nod toward the 70s era and the Jim Carlin era. The only thing I wish they would have done that I think they could have done would be to make the helmets bass boat glitter and bring back that glitter black metallic helmet from the Mike Leach era. And then you really kind of give a shout out to all areas of Texas Tech football. And I think that would have looked well with this look as well. But we get to the most important part of the most important topic today, and that is war has been declared. The collective college football world has fired shots in the directions of Texas Tech fans this week. And to recap, it started on Wednesday when the National Football Foundation, along with CFO, which is College Football Officiating, announced rule changes for the upcoming season. Most of them were pretty generic. I didn't get a chance to read through most of them because I was too perplexed by the one. But one specific rule referenced a new guideline for an automatic unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. And I'll read the rule in its entirety. Automatic unsportsmanlike conduct fouls. All forms of gun violence are not permitted in college football, and simulating the firing of a weapon is an automatic unsportsmanlike foul. Added to the rule in 2025, if a player brandishes a weapon, it is considered an unsportsmanlike act. My first question, is gun violence so prevalent in college football games that it necessitates an actual rule? Did I miss something here? I assumed all forms of gun violence were not permitted anywhere. But correct me if I'm wrong. They go on to add, too, if a player brandishes a weapon during a game, it's an automatic unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. And sure, if you didn't have that rule before, we can codify it. If you've got a Glock in the back of your pants and you whip it out during the game, 15 yards. You do it again, automatic ejection. That sounds fair to me. But what really has me concerned here is the simulating the firing of a weapon is an automatic unsportsmanlike foul. You see where I have concerns here. I want to assume what they're referring to is more like what Ja Morant was doing in the NBA Finals. Like, they don't want you to simulate murder. They don't want you to point a gun and fire it at someone, even if it is pretend. Now, I think that's soft, too. We're not really shooting at anyone. They're finger guns. We're good. But I can see how that might be crossing a few lines, pretending to murder another player on the field. And you can make an argument that the rule was specifically written to accommodate a school like Texas Tech, because you can very easily and very safely claim that the act of holding guns up is not the same act as firing a gun. Now, I don't know what Oklahoma State's going to do because their act is very specifically pistols firing. So, we'll let the officials sort that one out. By all normal appearances, though, Texas Tech should be fine. But college football officials aren't normal. They're nasty, spiteful, mean people who are conspiring to keep your favorite football team from winning games. Now, I'm being facetious, of course. But it should be pointed out that there was no guardrail to protect Texas Tech and Oklahoma State as well. And any other school that uses a similar guns up, hand sign, pistols firing. I don't know if the San Jose State Spartans use a bow and arrow shooting thing. I've seen players do that before as well. Is that going to be considered the simulating of firing of a weapon? Although you don't really fire a bow and arrow, you release a bow and arrow, but still. How hard would it have been, though, to just add a line, just to make us all feel better, to add a line that just says, this rule does not apply to official hand signs related to university traditions? Then you're covered. The guns up is covered. The pistols firing is covered. There is no issue. They chose not to include that in the rule. And I'm not saying there's a big conspiracy. I'm not saying they even thought about it. They probably didn't. It probably didn't even come up. They probably saw, again, Ja Morant in the NBA Finals pretend to shoot another player with his fingers and thought, we need to keep that out of the game. Now, what if, and bear with me, there could be a scenario in a game, though, because of the way they've worded this rule, where an official decides to insert himself in the game and make a scene. You know, we see that happen frequently in basketball. Shout out to Doug Sermons. So just imagine a scenario where it's the fourth quarter. Maybe Texas Tech gets a key stop. It's a fourth down. You get a sack, and a player stands up and just starts doing this out of excitement, and then a flag gets thrown, and you get unsportsmanlike conduct, 15 yards, and an automatic first down. Yeah, we've seen this sort of thing time and time again at Texas Tech. I once watched Randy Crystal call an offensive pass interference on a play where Jakeem Grant caught the pass, was about to catch the pass, got shoved two hands in the back by a Baylor player, and got the flag thrown, and offensive pass interference was called. You know, there's already about 100 ways for officials to screw you over, and that's why Joey McGuire makes a practice of inserting bad calls into plays. That's why he calls Baron Morton down when he's clearly not down sometimes, to get players used to things not going your way, even though you did everything right. But like I said, there's already about 100 ways for officials to screw you over, and now there's 101. In one of the most pivotal, important seasons that Texas Tech has ever stepped into. And that wasn't even the most egregious thing that happened this week. The thing that has everybody talking, and has had everybody talking for days now, is on Thursday, Ross Dellinger reported, and I'll read his quote in the entirety, Big 12 officials to solidify an existing game management policy related to the throwing of items onto the playing surface. A team will receive warnings for the first two violations in a game before 15-yard penalties could begin. Dellinger goes on to say, the move most impacts Texas Tech, whose fans hold a tradition of tossing tortillas onto the field, most notably during opening kickoff. The policy will allow for tortillas to be thrown at opening kickoff, but will result in a warning. A third incident may result in a penalty. In the immortal words of Walter Sobchak, has the whole world gone crazy? Again, I understand the need to address the issue related to throwing water bottles, items. You can't trust the Longhorns anymore. You know, they threw water bottles on a field until a penalty got overturned in their favor. This is where that rule is, I would hope, was where that conversation originated from. But not only did they not make a point to specifically exclude Texas Tech's tortilla throwing tradition from the rule, but reports indicate that the tradition itself was targeted by Big 12 ADs, not named Kirby Hocutt, primarily Rick George of Colorado. Now, I know it was Rick George, not necessarily because I've heard things, although I have heard things from people in the know, but because almost immediately after the news broke out, Adam Munstertiger, a writer and publisher for BuffStampede.com, posted this, and completely on his own accord and not, by the direction of Colorado administration. He posted this on X. I'm all for fun, but what #CU Buffs experienced on the sideline in Lubbock last fall was not safe. Some fans were throwing tortillas with hard items inside. Needed to be addressed. Never mind the fact that Colorado players were egging fans on the whole game into throwing more tortillas from the sidelines. Never mind that a Colorado assistant coach was kicking over the pylons as Jones AT&T Stadium officials were trying to set up for the games. That's on video if you want to watch that. Never mind the fact that Shador and his brother were essentially assaulting a Texas Tech ball boy who was just trying to do his job. The tortillas were the line that was crossed. And I love when people try to lie about things that they clearly have no idea about. And if you've ever been to Colorado, you understand that people in Colorado have no idea about Mexican food. But hard objects within a tortilla, like did we go to Rose's and have them stick some batteries in the tortilla press? And someone called him out on this. I called him out on this. I specifically said, I don't think you understand what a tortilla is. And he immediately blocked me for saying that. But fans called him out saying, how the heck do you have hard items within a tortilla? His response was, well, have you heard of a burrito? Yeah, we have, because we live in Texas. And since we have heard of burritos, we understand, like, you can't just wrap a dry tortilla around a dry object and expect to be able to throw it with any success. And then because fans started pushing back on that and started pointing that part out, more fans after the fact came into the chat to claim that the tortillas were wet. They wet the tortillas, wrapped them around hard objects. They didn't say what the hard objects were. At least Oklahoma fans had the decency to claim it was batteries. Just hard objects. Maybe it was someone's flask. I don't know. And use that to throw the tortillas. Which, if that's the case, did it really hurt you? Like, you have a soft, wet, mushy tortilla wrapped around what I can only imagine at worst was a battery. And even that is bogus. Did you even feel it hit you? But I digress. I mean, people have been making claims and accusations about Texas Tech throwing objects with the tortillas since the tradition started. Gary Patterson once famously claimed that he was hit by a frozen water bottle. And this occurred in the fourth quarter of a game where the high was about 98. So kudos to whoever got the water bottle to remain frozen until the perfect moment that you got to clock Gary Patterson in the head with it. And of course, Oklahoma players, I can't remember the name of this particular player, but Oklahoma in general made claims after the 2007 game. I think they did after the 2005 game as well. In Lubbock, that they had to keep their helmets on the sidelines because fans were throwing batteries at them. Now, it was 2007. Sure, maybe you pop the batteries out of your digital camera and flicked a few at some people. But what I do notice, and what anybody who goes back and watches the game footage will notice, is that not a single Oklahoma player on that sideline had their helmet on. If you're told you got to keep your helmet on because batteries were plinking off of your head like shrapnel, you would think that they would, actually have their helmets on. But, we're talking about people from Oklahoma here, so, you never know. Maybe the batteries did some permanent damage there. But for some reason, there are people, and even people in the Texas Tech camp, specifically, I would say people who've been following Texas Tech since before the 80s, because you probably remember when the tradition started, and it started as not as a fun little thing that we do, and more there was a little bit more malicious intent behind the tradition when it started, as it was a reaction to ESPN and. I think it was ESPN. ESPN definitely made comments that there's nothing in Lubbock but a football team and a tortilla factory. A&M and the University of Texas both distributed pamphlets to recruits that just had nothing good to say about Lubbock and basically said the same thing, that Lubbock was just tortillas or as flat as a tortilla, something along those lines. So, people who remember the tradition starting, maybe you don't have the most fond memory of it, and I can get that. But it's a harmless tradition, and people on both sides of the ball some seem to view it as Texas Tech fans throwing rotten tomatoes at a team. It's not even close to that. They're edible flying frisbees. That's it. And in the year 2025, there's no malicious intent. Nobody's trying to harm anybody with a flying tortilla. It started out as a cheeky joke, just like everything else at Texas Tech starts out, just like the cactus emoji started out. It started out as a joke, a way to clap back at another insult in a long list of insults thrown at Texas Tech in the city of Lubbock. And now it's just a fun thing to do because these things fly. They're frisbees. It's just dumb. It's just dumb to be offended by it. It's just dumb to try to claim that you were injured by it in any way, that or that it was used as a disguise because that's the other thing too. You're trying to claim that Texas Tech fans rolled up something hard in a tortilla to throw it. Well, what would be the point of that? If the point was to disguise your projectile as a tortilla, you failed because throwing a burrito is not the same as throwing a frisbee. And if you're going to go through all that effort to throw something like it's a missile, you're just going to throw the object. The water bottle is going to go a lot further on its own than it is wrapped up in a tortilla. So will the beer can. Just dumb. But this vote passed 15-1. And you can guess who the lone no vote was. Kirby Hocutt, said he was the lone no vote. To keep the Big Lebowski references going, this aggression will not stand, man. Kirby Hocutt issued the following statement. Red Raiders, the rules can change, but our tradition will not. How about at United West Texas opening kickoff tortilla launch? Hashtag 15-1. The battle cry has been set. Texas Tech has already latched on to 15-1 as the official battle cry of the season. Also, we have a sponsor now for the tortilla tosses. United Supermarkets is going to take care of that. Kirby Hocutt also mentioned that he's going to be putting fresh tortillas in every visiting AD's box this season. I love it when Texas Tech fans fight back. I love it even more when our leadership fights back against something stupid. And the rule itself, and as well as how it came to be, is one of the softest things that I've ever seen come out of a conference that once made it a penalty to throw horns down. Because, as I said with the guns up rule, you could have a line that exempts Texas Tech's tortilla toss. You put in a line that says, this is not related to Texas Tech's tradition, or a line that says, this only applies to objects such as water bottles, beer cans, etc. But they not only did they not do it, they wouldn't own to not doing it either. They tried to frame the announcement as sounding like they're giving Texas Tech a pass on the kickoff, and that's just not accurate at all. Because what they're going to do is, after the kickoff and after the tortillas are thrown, they're still going to give a warning. After every kickoff now for the foreseeable future, an official is going to have to go to center field and announce crowd warning for throwing items on the field. Every game. From now until whenever. Until Texas Tech finds itself in the SEC or something. And they'll have to do it again after the first touchdown, which is when Texas Tech fans will inevitably throw it again. And it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. And now, imagine the crowd reaction we're going to get now after you have the opening kickoff, the tortillas fly. Fans are already aware of this. Fans are already mad about this. You're going to see more tortillas thrown this season than you ever have seen in your life. The Mission Tortilla Company is not going to be able to keep up with the demand this year. But now you're going to have the official booing of the officials after they have to come out and announce a stupid warning for the crowd every single opening kickoff, which we should get a sponsor for that. How about like Lone Star Bail Bonds sponsors the official booing of the refs? But tortillas have been a source of contention for a long time outside of Lubbock. Aggies and Horns for forever have called it classless clown behavior. Others have used Others, like I said, have used it as an excuse to accuse Texas Tech of throwing other objects, such as batteries. It's all. I bet I can get them to believe that they throw other objects because they already throw tortillas. But I'll tell you this, and this is something that needs to be said. I've heard some people having some comments about Brett Yormark in this regard and about Big 12 officials. This rule and this whole meeting was entirely Big 12 ADs. Brett Yormark was not involved. Nobody in the Big 12 was involved except for the ADs. And so this act was done entirely by Big 12 officials. Big 12 athletic directors. And so what we've learned from that is that Big 12, the other 15 Big 12 athletic directors are soft. They're probably tired of hearing about Texas Tech all offseason and hearing about Cody Campbell and having Texas Tech snag every transfer portal player and signing 5-star recruits. Tired of seeing Texas Tech's name in the spotlight and just thought they would kind of jab them a little bit. But as far as Texas Tech is concerned, this isn't just a minor annoyance or an expected correction of bad student behavior. This is an act of war. And what are we going to do? If again we're on a key drive and a Big 12 official throws a flag because a tortilla found its way onto the field sometime in the third or fourth quarter. But what I was trying to get to is Brett Yormark had nothing to do with this. What he does have to do with now, though, is when he tells the officials or the communication that he gives to Big 12 officials in regards to how much to actually take this rule change seriously. Obviously, you're going to have to go out at the very beginning and give the official, give the official warning to the sideline, because otherwise you're going to look like you're just blatantly ignoring the rule. But if you're Brett Yormark and you've got a school like Texas Tech that currently is keeping your name in the headlines at a time where you desperately need your name in the headlines as often as possible, I absolutely dare Big 12 officials to throw a flag because a lone tortilla found its way on the field sometime after halftime. I dare Brett Yormark to actually tell officials to take this rule seriously and enforce it seriously. Because all they really did is add fuel to an already out of control fire with this Texas Tech crowd. We saw it when the tradition started. We saw it whenever Tech fans first started throwing tortillas, and the Big 12 or the Texas Tech athletic director asked the officials to start throwing flags at students for that, and Spike Dykes got ticked as hell about it. Spike Dykes went and threatened the Texas Tech athletic director at the time and threatened the officials for throwing a flag over tortillas. But 15-1 now. That was the vote. That was Big 12 ADs against the one Texas Tech Kirby Hocutt vote. That's the way it is, and that is the battle cry of Red Raider Nation going into this year. Our lone fearless leader stood up for his university against the other conference ADs. And 15-1 is how it always is, because it's always been and always will be Texas Tech against the world. So as we said at the beginning, hashtag 15-1. It's our year. Now let's move on to the next part. Texas Tech was featured in the AP poll, ranked at number 23. Other Big 12 teams ranked were ASU 11, Kansas State at 17, Iowa State 22. BYU, Utah, and Baylor were receiving votes at 26, 27, and 28, respectively. Now, pay close attention to these teams, because if last year is any indication, if the Big 12 is going to have a chance to get multiple college football playoff bids, it will have to come from at least one of those 7 teams. If you have a scenario like last year, you cannot have a team at the top of the conference that was not expected to be there, and you cannot have the teams at the top of the conference underperform the way they did last year. For Texas Tech, though, specifically, this is the first time the Red Raiders have been ranked since 2018. This is the first time ranked in the preseason poll since 2008. And the first time ranked altogether since 2018. Tech spent 1 week ranked at 25 back in 2018, and that was right before dropping out again after 1 week, after a 34-42 loss in Lubbock to the then-ranked number 12 West Virginia Mountaineers. That was the final season in Lubbock of the Cliff Kingsbury era. Also a game where we discovered why kickers are really, really important. To go back through history a little bit, Texas Tech has been ranked 5 times in the AP preseason poll. 2008, of course, was the last time. But the first time was 1973. Texas Tech started out ranked number 20 in the season, 20 in the country. They rattled off an 11-1 record and then finished number 11 to end the season. Arguably the best season in Texas Tech football history, that Joe Barnes era. 1977, they started the season ranked number 8 after a fantastic 1976 year. However, went 7-5 that year and finished unranked. I think injuries played a big part in that season. You didn't grace the preseason poll again until 2005, coming off of the the Holiday Bowl win against number 3 Cal, a team that featured Aaron Rodgers and Marshawn Lynch. So you start the 2005 season ranked 21, went 9-3 that year, finished the season ranked 20. You were as high as number 10 though at one point in that season, going into a game in Austin where you faced a Vince Young led Texas Longhorn squad. You were ranked again because of the success of that season. You were ranked again in 2006. Went 8-5. Started at number 25. Finished unranked. That was Graham Harrell's sophomore year, first year as a starter. He had some up and downs. He had games where he threw back-to-back pick sixes against Missouri, but then led the greatest comeback in all time in the Insight Bowl against Minnesota. And then, of course, the next and last time that you were ever ranked in the preseason poll, 2008, started the season number 12, went 11-2, and finished the season number 12. Of course, ranked as high as number 2 in the polls. Should have been ranked number 1. AP was garbage for not giving you the number 1 ranking after that Oklahoma State game, especially since Alabama that year just almost fell on their face against a very weak, I think it was Auburn. I could be wrong. But what does it all mean? We're hearing all these stats. What does it mean? Well, I'll tell you, it means something, and it means absolutely nothing all at the same time. First of all, I'm going to preface everything that I say with the following statement. The Associated Press, in every possible context, is complete and total garbage. On top of that, polls in general, especially preseason polls, and especially polls that make an impact on who gets to play in the postseason, are insane. For example, I pull out a year, 1951. We'll go to the SEC. Georgia Tech finished 11-0-1. So 11 wins, 1 tie, and won the SEC. They finished the season ranked number 5. Meanwhile, Tennessee, obviously a crowd favorite, blue blood team, went 10-1, actually had a loss on their record, finished second place in the SEC, and won the national championship, was ranked number 1 by the Associated Press. Make it make sense. You can go through history of the AP poll, and you'll see instances like that all over the place, especially in those years where the AP was the sole determining factor of who won the national championship before the BCS. It's put together by a mix of national media personalities who want to see big brands on TV, and then local newspaper writers who have clear biases towards their local teams. I went through and counted. If you put together the Big Ten, SEC, and the national writers who vote in the AP poll, it's 80% of the AP poll is voted by Big Ten writers, big SEC writers, and Fox and ESPN personalities. And the other 20% is made up of Big 12 and ACC writers, and a handful of Group of 5 writers sprinkled in. I've been told, you really think it's a conspiracy? No, but I think people have biases. And I think there's a lot of people who swing one direction who are voting on this thing, and not so much who swing the other direction. But again, what does it all mean? Well, it means nothing, because the AP is trash and should be nothing more than an opinion piece. But it also means something. It means something here that Texas Tech was included at 23. Because the AP has a history of being unkind to schools like Texas Tech, and always rewarding the big brands like Oklahoma, who found themselves sitting at number 18 this year, despite being absolutely mediocre every year since before they left the Big 12. And for that reason, again, it means nothing, but don't discount the importance of starting the season ranked, because these people hate you. They hate you, and they had to let you into their little top 25 club. Now, not all of them hate you. John Wilner, for example, we all know John Wilner. He had Texas Tech ranked at number 11. Javon Edmonds and Pete Yanity had Tech ranked at number 12. And Brian Fonseca, excuse me if I mispronounced that, number 14. There are a few ball knowers who are voting in the AP. But otherwise, like I said, about 60 to 70% of the AP voters are affiliated with the Big Ten, SEC, or have a reason to want to see you fail. In fact, I think that number is a lot higher than 70%. So being given a little bit of respect, just a shred of respect by the national media, is a sign that you're doing something right. And the more you do right, the more they're going to hate you. Just ask the 2022 national runner-up TCU. But some Texas Tech over the years, I've heard fans say that they don't like being ranked. They prefer to fly under the radar, and I'll tell you, that's loser mentality. We got to clear that up right now. It might be good for an upset or two, which is what Texas Tech fans are comfortable being. We're comfortable being the upset school. We're comfortable being a team that goes 8-4 and knocks down a good Oklahoma team or a good Texas team or maybe a good TCU, or we pull off a great upset in the bowl season like we did against Cal in 2004, or Clemson in 2002. We've got I think we're 2-1 against the SEC, maybe 3-1 against the SEC going back to 2022. Texas Tech fans' comfort zone is flying under the radar and punching upwards every now and then. That's loser mentality. That's not what this team is all about. That might be good for an upset or two here and there, but if you're going to get through the door that you once knocked on in 2008, you're going to have to embrace being a target and being a team that will never get overlooked. With the offseason that Texas Tech had, I guarantee that there are 12 teams on the schedule from Utah to Houston to Arkansas, Pine Bluff, that all have the Red Raiders circled on the calendar this year. Not to be the Longhorn guy and say, we are everyone's Super Bowl. You're not everyone's Super Bowl, because every game matters. Every game should matter. And if you're a good team, everyone should have you circled, and that's not a testament to any other teams, fans or whatever else that those people in Austin like to say. But every one of them has you circled, and every one of them wants to be the reason that Texas Tech becomes another Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher meme. All of them want to see Texas Tech with all that oil money and all that and the 5-star recruits and everything else just crash and burn like the Hindenburg and fade away into obscurity. So if you're going to take the next step, you're not sneaking up on anyone. You're going to have to take everyone's best shot and just be better. But Texas Tech is used to fighting uphill. To borrow from something that Robert Giovanetti was saying, if you watch the episode 1 of The Brand, he explained what I was trying to say in the last episode. He worded it better than I did. Texas Tech has been fighting since before the university was founded. Lubbock and West Texas, for example, had to threaten to secede from the state of Texas and form its own state in order to get Texas Tech. Texas Tech fans successfully got TCU to change its vote from a no to a yes in order to get into the Southwest Conference by boycotting the TCU alum-owned Neiman Marcus chain. And successfully did it. They hosted a boycott. The pressure got to TCU, and they changed their vote. You fought the University of Texas for the right to create a medical school in 1978. You fought Texas A&M again to get your veterinary school a couple years ago. You fought to be included with Texas A&M to become a member of the Big 12. And you fought to keep the conference from collapsing when Texas and OU left for the SEC, with Kirby Hocutt and Lawrence Skubanek being the head of the table that kept the Big 12 together. Everything you have, you fought for. And Texas Tech definitely has a fight ahead of it. But if a team goes as their coach goes, Texas Tech should be chomping at the bit right now and ready for a fight. Joey McGuire has repeated the offseason that pressure is a privilege. And the only difference between pressure and opportunity is perception. And so if you're perceiving the pressure as something that's going to hold you down, you've got the wrong point of view. If you've got pressure, that means you have an opportunity to do something great. And the Red Raiders will have a huge opportunity in front of them for their centennial season. Now let's go ahead, before the end of the show, we're going to do one more thing. I just ragged on how much I hate preseason rankings. So, of course, now's the time to do Big 12 power rankings. We're going to do this once now at the preseason. We'll do another one about midway through the season, and we'll do one leading into bowl season after the season ends. But just to get an idea of where every Big 12 team stands. Now, again, this is stupid because for the most part, we have no idea what any of these teams are going to be. This is just guessing. But we'll start with number 16, UCF. They are at the bottom. Now, Scott Frost is back, and I think Scott Frost is going to do great things with UCF. But he has a major rebuild on his hands, and they lost a ton of pieces to the portal. So UCF will be back, but not this year. Coming back next is number 15, West Virginia. Just copy and paste everything I said about UCF to the West Virginia, but add Rich Rod instead. Now, they might get lucky if a quarterback emerges from fall camp. They might be good for a couple upsets. But again, I don't expect much from year one. And the only thing, too, I will say is I'm very confident that Scott Frost will get UCF back up. I got to wait and see about Rich Rod. He was great before, but we've seen over and over again that coaches from these previous eras, don't always translate to the modern era. We've seen active coaches now who fell apart the moment the portal and NIL became a thing. So we'll see. We'll wait and see. I'm rooting for West Virginia. Number 14, Cincinnati. Brendan Sorsby is a great quarterback. But if we're being honest, I think Scott Satterfield is getting fired after this season. I don't think Cincinnati is going to be very good at all. Again, they might be worth an upset here and there. But this is going to be the final year for Scott Satterfield. Oklahoma State. This is just the biggest conundrum to me. Oklahoma just came off their worst season under Mike Gundy. They went 0-9 in Big 12 play. Gundy was nearly pushed out over the offseason, if people remember. There was a 12-hour period where we went to bed thinking that Mike Gundy was done at Oklahoma State, and just to wake up the next morning and discover that, actually everything was good to go and worked out. What they worked out, though, was that he had to fire his OC and DC, and the university had to have a say in who he brought in. Sometimes when a run is over, and Mike Gundy has had a heck of a run at Oklahoma State. I'm also thinking this might be the last year for Mike Gundy. Now, that said, it would also be the most Mike Gundy thing in the world to rattle off 9 wins this year after everything. So who knows? We'll be watching Oklahoma State. But like I said, I'm expecting them to finish at the bottom half of the Big 12, and I think this might be it for Mike Gundy and the Cowboys. Number 12, Arizona. No Fafita returns. If some players step up, then I think Arizona might land higher than number 12, but it's up in the air. We're going to have to see how they start out the season. Number 11, Kansas. I expect KU to be better this year, but not really better than 6-6 or 7-5. I don't really know if Kansas is ever at least not this year. Now, they did just get a $300 million gift towards facilities and towards NIL from David Booth, their biggest donor. Kansas might be coming up in the future, but I don't think it's happening this year. Number 10, Colorado. I actually like Deion Sanders. I just made fun of Colorado. I actually do like Deion Sanders as a coach. I'm expecting Colorado to take a step back this year, though. They could land a little bit higher depending on how well Caden Salter from Liberty plays this year. They could also take a huge step back and just completely fall on their face and end up at the bottom of the Big 12. I just don't know. They have a lot of distractions every year, and a lot of distractions this year as well. Moving on to number 9, Utah. Devin Dampier has potential to be good, and Kyle Whittingham is still a really good coach. Some are expecting Utah to be playing for a Big 12 title. I think if you're 9th in the Big 12 with how much parity there is in the conference, I would tell you that being 9th in the conference is within striking distance of being a team that could win the Big 12. But they're just going to have to improve from what we saw last year, and I'm going to have to see it on the field before I really believe it. Number 8, BYU. BYU was absolutely a title contender heading into this season, and then Jake Retzlaff did the unthinkable and had premarital sex, and now his BYU career is over. Retzlaff is at Tulane over in not Sin City, just New Orleans, and BYU is without a quarterback. I haven't seen if they've announced one. They might have, but the guy I saw was about 4 feet tall. They still have some really good pieces around the quarterback position, but they're going to need to really get lucky at with their backup quarterback if they want a chance at winning the Big 12. And they absolutely could. Number 7, Houston. I'm expecting Houston to be a lot more competitive in the Big 12 this year under year 2 of Willie Fritz. We're just going to have to see. I'm expecting about 8 wins from them this year. TCU. Who the heck even knows what TCU is doing? I've got them at number 6. Who even knows what they're going to do any given season? Josh Hoover's returning, and I expect him to be really, really good. I've got them winning 9 games this season. Number 5, Iowa State. Iowa State finished second in the Big 12 after losing in the title game last year. I'm expecting a drop. I don't think they're going to drop far from the top, but I don't think we'll see them in the title game. Number 4, Baylor. Dave Aranda went from being immediately fired, imminently fired, to finishing 8-4. If Sawyer Robinson takes the next step, they could be really, really dangerous. That and they got the gold chrome helmets back. So watch out for Baylor this year. My expectation is that Baylor is a college playoff team. Kansas State. Frankly, I'm just expecting, they're number 3. I'm just expecting Kansas State to do what Kansas State does. Avery Johnson returns, and again, just like with Josh Hoover, if he takes the next step, Kansas State could be really, really dangerous. And they're another team that I'm expecting to see them in the Big 12 title game, or at least one of the teams fighting for it in the last week. Number 2, Arizona State. Last year, they won the Big 12. They got absolutely robbed in the college football playoff against Texas. They returned nearly everyone except for one big name, and that's Cam Scatterbo. They are poised to be a dynasty in the new Big 12. If they keep going the way that they've been going, they have potential to be a team that just really takes off for the foreseeable future. That said, it is the Big 12. We've had plenty of teams that we believe are going to be dynasties, and the next year they finish at the bottom of the conference. See Baylor, for example, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was in the Big 12 conference championship game the year before last, and then the next year went 0-9 in conference play. But then we get to number 1, Texas Tech, and who else? They brought in the number 1 ranked portal class, beefed up the defense and the O-line. Baron Morton returns, and the Big 12 has now pissed them all off. The time has come for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. If Baron Morton takes the next step, I said on Clint Foster's show a while back that Baron Morton, last season, he reminded me a lot of sophomore Graham Harrell. If he wants to take the next step into being junior, senior Graham Harrell, Texas Tech is, the sky is the limit. And I said in my last episode, Texas Tech is a team that is competing for a national championship. It starts with winning the Big 12. That is it. We'll be back again on Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on X. That's Flatland_sports on X. We're also Flatland Sports on TikTok and everywhere else that you get your podcast from. Thank you so much for joining us. Wreck 'em Tech. You can't take the tortillas away. Have a great night, everyone.